Recently, I did a small clip on beliefs, and now people are invested in their beliefs. And often, as a result of being really invested in their beliefs, they become very closed to any contradictory evidence that may come their way, simply because they've been convinced that something is wrong, is right, and they don't want to hear anything about it. And I think that happens even among very intelligent people. When you think about people referring to certain things as established science, the science is settled and these types of things, and not wanting to hear, and anything that's alternative is considered quackery and whatnot. And I guess it's important to note that certainly there are quacks out there, but also all people who come up with new breakthroughs. Stephen Covey once said, all great breakthroughs are break with, meaning that they go against the grain. They basically turn things upside down in their head. And they initially are usually ridiculed. Sometimes they're even violently opposed. And eventually they wind up being considered self-evident. And in some cases, somebody else comes up with it and says it was their idea in the first place. Sometimes it's people who initially ridiculed or opposed it. So it's very important, even when I think about for myself, because I certainly can fall prey to this, as I have some very strongly held beliefs. One of them, of course, is exercising to complete failure until you can't do another repetition. Now, in fairness, Arthur Jones, who is best known for coming up with this concept, always said that going complete failure was likely not necessary in exercise, but it was very difficult to measure almost failure. So he said, by going to failure, you've done everything you can to stimulate an adaptation response in your body. But now Ellington Darden, who was the director of research and worked with Arthur Jones for years, is now saying that sometimes going to failure all the time may be very difficult on your nervous system. And one of the things is, how do you measure almost failure? And we talk about inroad, because the whole purpose of failure is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end, the end being inroading or momentarily weakening the musculature sufficiently in order to get an adaptation response. So Ellington Darden is now basically stating that there are other ways to do that. I don't have time in a 3-minute clip, but basically by using negative reps at the beginning and at the end of a set where you lower very slowly, that you can create the inroad, even deeper inroad, without going to failure. And you think about it, there's been premonitions of this for a long time in a weightlifting community. For example, Doug McGuff has stated, I'm paraphrasing here in case Doug hears this, that going in the past, people would go so far into failure that they had to lay down on the floor for 20 minutes after they finished a workout because they'd worked so hard. I've heard also other people say that they define failure differently, in terms of as soon as the form deteriorates even a little bit, the set is over. If a person, for example, starts to make faces or grunt and is unable to continue the sets calmly and deliberately with full composure, they consider that failure. So, I think for a long time it's been considered, just like so many things, you can do too much of anything. Initially, a lot of the community, Darden, Jones, their whole thing was that people were doing too much volume. In other words, they were doing too much overall exercise and were not able to recover from. And they came up with something which today is becoming increasingly validated, which is it's more important to have more effort in your exercise and actually less volume. And while that's true, you can still have too much of a good thing. If your effort is so intense that people are unable to recover from it, then it becomes counterproductive. So like all things, pendulums swing, pendulums go back and forth, and that's the way things work as humans get more and more context and learn more about the world around them. Bye for now.